This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Emergency teams recover 18 bodies from collapsed mine in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Japan is set to have a new prime minister soon as Chief Cabinet Minister Yoshihide Suga wins leadership of the ruling LDP. And ECOWAS to meet tomorrow on Mali crisis and what's next for the military junta. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. Ethiopia launches a 200 birr note as it introduces new currency. And in sports, Tunisia's Paralympians return to training after ease in restrictions by government. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. I'm Richard Nta. So good to have you with us. Let's start in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where emergency workers have recovered the first bodies of miners who died after a makeshift gold mine collapsed. So far, 18 bodies have been recovered at the site, which is near the town of Kamituga. The governor of the South Kivu province has said that 50 miners had died, caught underground when heavy rains flooded their mine on Friday. Another official said the miners were caught off guard because the wet season is yet to get fully underway. One person was lucky to escape. He had left the site before the rain started to remove some large rocks. Dozens of people die each year in accidents in largely unregulated artisanal mines in the DRC.
It started after heavy rain. Then I saw a child running up to say water was rising in the mine and that he did not think there were any survivors. We went back there and found the pit filled with water. That is when I lost consciousness.
The rescue teams are there, working and doing their job. We have to ask ourselves the same question because, as you know, the dry season has just finished in Kamituga and we now have the wet season. This type of weather triggers such disasters because people cannot handle rain, and this is a major problem.
The chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, Ghanaian President Akufo-Addo, will on Tuesday convene a consultative meeting as part of efforts to resolve the political crisis in Mali. This comes after the ruling military junta in Mali agreed to form a transitional government that will be in place for 18 months. The junta proposed the government will be either headed by a member of the military or a civilian. All right, we have with us Mamadou Tapili, or I beg your pardon. We have Philly Haza live from Abuja. Phil, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. Phil, let's get straight into it. Phil, here's my first question. ECOWAS had given a September 15th deadline for the military junta to have a civilian president during the transition. What is ECOWAS likely to do now, even as it deliberates tomorrow in Accra?
Well, thank you, Richard. Yes, indeed, the ECOWAS is deliberating tomorrow in Accra. So we have barely 24 hours for a firm decision to be communicated to the ECOWAS from Mali, or the people at the moment holding power, that's the military junta, on the stance by the ECOWAS. So we're either going to see the military junta bend or adjust its decision to have a military personnel or a former military personnel hold a transitional government, or so I mean, the ECOWAS says they want a civilian person to be there. At the moment, after a long period of talks between the military junta and, of course, the other opposition parties led by the M5, they have said that they are proposing a military person, but the M5 has rejected that. They are saying that they are insisting on civilian personnel. So we have the ECOWAS and the M5 at the moment pushing for a civilian person to be there. So it's going to be a very tough one for the military junta. They will have to find a way to bend, either have a civilian as a president and, of course, a vice as a military personnel. But all of that we have between now and the next 24 hours to see whether or not it will change. But, of course, the ECOWAS will definitely want to remain on their stance of insisting that the country produce a civilian government for the transitional period.
All right, Phil, important statements that you've made there. Your points are well taken. I want to get your perspective and your take. ECOWAS had given a September 15th deadline for the military junta to have a civilian president during the transition. What is ECOWAS likely to do now, even as it deliberates in Accra, as you have mentioned? But if they fail to find common ground, what do you think the fallout would be?
Well, we've seen in the past the ECOWAS forcing the hand of the military junta to, take some of the resolutions that the member states have, projected. Things we've seen the military junta release the ousted president, Ibrahim Boubacar Keita. We've also seen them banned from the initial period of 3 years transitional government for time taken for them to form a transitional government to now between 12 months and 18 months. So, of course, the ECOWAS will definitely want to resume its sanctions heavily on the country. It has talked about forming a force, a very strong, formidable force that it may consider going to the country to ensure that things are the way the 15-nation bloc wants it to be. But we're hoping that it won't get to that because, of course, we've seen the military junta try to reason and come to terms with the suggestions of the ECOWAS. So that's why we're hoping that, and of course, it's a new leader now of the ECOWAS, the president of Ghana, so he'll want to definitely either extend the deadline or also for them to be able to agree on a truce, getting a transitional government that is led by civilian, or the military junta will now have to work with the time limit that it has to, heed to the call of the ECOWAS.
All right, Philly Haza, let's leave it there for now. Thank you for your insight and analysis. That's Philly Haza, our very own CGTN correspondent, speaking to us live from Abuja. Let's turn our attention to Japan now, where Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga has just won the leadership of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. Suga easily won the ballot, securing 70% of the total 534 votes from the party's lawmakers and regional representatives. His rivals, former Defense Chief Shigeru Ishiba and LDP Policy Chief Fumio Kishida, trailed behind with 89 and 68 votes, respectively. The victory paves way for the 71-year-old to become the country's prime minister in a parliamentary vote later this week. Well, Suga has been a longtime ally of outgoing Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He served under Abe's first cabinet in 2006 as Minister of Internal Affairs and Communications. Suga has held the key post of Chief Cabinet Secretary since 2012. The 71-year-old said he will stick with Abenomics, the economic policies focused on boosting government spending and increasing Japan's competitiveness. He will also pursue diplomacy centered on the U.S.-Japan Security Alliance. Born to a family of strawberry farmers in the northern Akita region, the issues of rural areas suffering depopulation are also said to be among his top concerns. China has congratulated the new leader and said it is willing to cooperate with the new government.
Congratulations to Mr. Yoshihide Suga on his election as the new leader of LDP. China is willing to continue to work with the new leaders of the Japanese ruling party and government, abide by the principles and spirit set out in the 4 political documents between China and Japan, deepen economic and social cooperation, work together to fight the pandemic, and promote the continuous improvement and development of China-Japan relations.
Well, it's been 6 months since the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. Like in other parts of the world, several businesses in Nigeria have been adversely affected. Many have had to lay off staff, while some have had to shut down. CGTN's Kelechi Emekelam reports on how some businesses are adapting despite tremendous pressure.
Another client's order heading out for delivery. It's a new strategy embraced by Woks and Koi, a Chinese restaurant in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Before the coronavirus pandemic, it operated majorly as a dine-in, where clients love to relax and treat themselves to some Chinese cuisine. But with the COVID-19 lockdown and restrictions, the dine-in was no longer an option. And several restaurants and diners like this one were forced to close shop. But for the management of Woks and Koi, shutting down wasn't an option. They turned to digital marketing to keep the business going.
For me, I would say COVID-19 has made us to have more customer, more client by ordering online or sometimes by giving us a call on our contact number. We have our Instagram page whereby we showcase our meal, our food, and we have calls from there. And like I would say, like 60% of most customers we have now with this COVID-19 pandemic are customers that we don't know are new clients because they made use of the social media service to make an order.
But transitioning hasn't been a walk in the park. Management and staff are still struggling to deal with the challenges that come with the new system, especially as their customer base expands.
We have 2 bikes that do our deliveries, and that is not enough because of the turnover of customers.
Because of the major securities stopping you on the road, doing all these checkpoints, sometimes our customers do complain of the order getting to them late.
Nigeria has been reopening various sectors of its economy. For instance, just recently the country's international airspace reopened. And although the impact of the months of lockdown has been hard on businesses here, like Woks and Koi, several businesses are seeking innovative ways of turning the adversity into opportunities as they explore new ways of keeping their businesses afloat. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
South Africa's Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula has warned passengers and airlines against flouting COVID-19 regulations at the country's OR Tambo International Airport. The airport is the country's largest and serves as the main hub for the national carrier, the South African Airways. CGTN's Yulisa Njamela reports.
Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula is quite livid. He wants all those who ignore the safety regulations that have been put up to ensure passenger safety to be harshly dealt with. Mbalula was speaking at OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg, where he inspected the airport's adherence to COVID-19 regulations and directions.
I received a complaint that some of the airlines are not observing the regulations on board, and they have totally lapsed in relation to the regulations. There is no enforcement of masks, and there is no sanitizing and all of that. So we want to deal with that because we can't allow airlines to break the measures that have been set by the government in relation to observing stringent measures when it comes to safety on board.
We want to indicate that that kind of behavior cannot be tolerated. We do have cases, Minister, where some passengers, in fact, have been arrested upon arrival at their destinations. And that is not what we want to see, because we want to keep the issues of compliance to a level that they are intended to.
The airports company South Africa, or AXA, however, continues to assure the public that it has put adequate safety measures to protect passengers. AXA is the state-owned entity that manages South Africa's 9 biggest airports.
We will always maintain legislative standards around PPE, ensuring that passengers arrive having completed their medical declarations to really make the passenger journey a very smooth and quick one. As the travel gets becoming really quite desirable for passengers, the numbers will continue to increase. We are ready, we are prepared, and we welcome all the passengers to come through in their numbers.
Meanwhile, as South Africa prepares for level 1 of lockdown, the Transport Ministry is already looking into allowing international travel.
It is top on our agenda to look at that. And as we do that, we benchmark ourselves against other countries. And also, it is not just going to be an opening for everybody just like that. We're going to benchmark ourselves and look at the scientific measures we need to take into consideration.
Regional travel will only be permitted during level 1 of the lockdown. All international passenger flights are still prohibited, except those flights authorized by the Minister of Transport. Yulisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
All right, let's revisit one of our top stories this hour. The chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, Ghanaian President Akufo-Addo, will on Tuesday convene a consultative meeting as part of efforts to resolve the political crisis in Mali. This comes after the ruling military junta in Mali agreed to form a transitional government that will be in place for 18 months. The junta proposed the government will be either headed by a member of the military or a civilian. All right, for more on this, we have Mamadou Tapili, a journalist based in Mali, to give us some insights. Mamadou, thank you for your company here on Africa Live. Let me get started by asking you, Mamadou, what is the latest from Bamako after the transition talks ended?
Yeah, well, the latest going on in Bamako, I mean, everything has been done. People were so concentrated and excited working during these 3 days of national consultation, which end up yesterday. And so today, the town is a bit more paced, but from the opposition side, no, because M5 RFP is protesting, and I mean they totally rejects what has been proposed, what has been set up as a proposal at the end of this 3 days gathering. So actually, they stand by and they reject totally of what has been done. And by the time, I mean, it's really on the side of M5, and in order waiting for the meeting of Tuesday with the ECOWAS, so what the kind of a resolution or what final agreements they will have with ECOWAS. For the moment, the opposition side, things seems to be not clear, but I think there is a lot to do because these are only the designations of the presidents or the vice presidents, or also a government member and also a legislative body who will work on these transitions. But still, I mean, if an agreement is done with the ECOWAS, I think still the M5 can have his word to say or to exchange with the soldiers in order they can occupy some main posts, because some main posts on this transition. So these are a couple of details that still M5 has at the margin to discuss with the military instead of start the fighting or rejecting everything in bloc right now, which could not be the solution because it can harden the talks with the military and ECOWAS.
Mamadou Tapili, thank you for bringing all of that there to light. Let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your insights. We appreciate it. You are watching Africa Live on CGTN. We've got a lot more news stories coming your way in a moment. Don't go away. Here's a look at the headlines. In Mauritius, the fallout continues 6 weeks after the Japanese vessel oil spill disaster began. And we take you to Samburu, Kenya, where rangers soldier on to keep animals safe despite dwindling tourism revenue.
My name is Regina Mirindlovo, and I have felt the pain of abuse and sexual violence throughout my life as a woman living with albinism. The condition is shrouded in dangerous myths in Africa. I have made a decision to take back my power and fight against those myths through my online talk show, My Voice Albinism, The New Era. In the second episode of this two-part film, I focus on pulling together my latest show. I faced several challenges with the recent announcement of the COVID virus outbreak. I'm not sure if my guests will show up, but I'm determined to break the silence and use my story to inspire the world.
Hello world, my name is Regina Mary and welcome to another awesome African episode of My Voice Albinism, The New Era.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. For Kenya's national parks and conservancies, the COVID-19 pandemic has significantly cut revenues. Job losses followed along with fears that poaching could increase. But at Samburu National Reserve Park, rangers soldiered on to ensure the animals were safe. CGTN's Enoch Sekolia reports.
My name is Leah Lokolonyei. I work as a ranger in Samburu National Reserve.
My name is Corporal Bernard Larab. I'm a ranger in Samburu National Reserve.
Since COVID-19 hit Kenya, visitors stopped coming to Samburu National Reserve.
I think what we are doing here, this conservation is just a sort of business. So the number of tourists dropped completely, drastically. Then the place became like empty. Many people who are working in the lodges, apart from the rangers, went home, no job, and no revenue completely.
We've been doing patrols alone with no visitors in sight, just us and our animals. I've never seen anything like this before.
This job has become part of my life. So it makes me to wake up without even anyone knock my door to wake up. So I definitely know that I'm supposed to be on this duty, and I like conservation. And even if tourists are not there, this wildlife are there, and we have been employed to take care of this wildlife. So for us, I think it's just normal to us. We don't see any change. We don't. Not because Wazungu are not there, no. But so long as wildlife is there, a ranger must be there.
Okay, mimi kama ranger, nikimpata mtu anamchezea ndovu.
If I find someone trying to kill an elephant, I will kill him first before he kills me.
Mimi nitamweka chini mbele kabla yeye anipate mimi mwenyewe.
To Mauritius now, where 6 weeks after a Japanese vessel caused a major environmental disaster through an oil spill, the fallout in the island nation continues. Tens of thousands of residents protested over the weekend near the site of the shipwreck, even as environmentalists stepped up efforts to secure the island's unique flora and fauna. CGTN's Lu Feifei has the details.
Irozigret, the island of egrets, is a tiny island about 850 meters off the southeast coast of Mauritius. Through decades of conservation, the island has been restored to its original natural state, and in the process, endemic plants and animals have been brought back to life from the brink of extinction. When the shipwreck Wakashio began leaking toxic fuel just 2 kilometers away from this sanctuary, some of the island's inhabitants were uprooted in a desperate attempt to once again save them from extinction.
This island is unique for many reasons. For example, the Irozigret ebony only grows here on this island. There's the bois de bœuf, also known as the bois d'éponge, which means softwood, which literally the global population is just behind me. We know that invasive species can get to islands. We know that there could have been a fire. So it's the worst place possibly on Mauritius that an oil spill could have happened. The Wakashio was a total surprise and a nightmare for us.
With the oil spill, this idyllic sanctuary was suddenly engulfed by toxic fumes and black, oil-soaked waters. Vikesh and his team immediately sprang into action.
With the wakashu, for the plants, we had to move all of them to bring them here at the forestry of Mayberg. There are about 3,000 plants in the plant nursery. These plants are special because they are endemic and indigenous plants. They provide food and habitat for the endemic birds and reptiles that live there.
Other evacuees are at La Vallée d'Urfenay. Here, as Ruben prepared the daily meal for some endemic Mauritian fruit bats, he thought about what the reptiles left behind are eating.
The reptile eats mostly insects. So what's going to happen is that when you have the splash of the seas on the island, the insects, mostly around the coast, gonna got this oil on them. We can lose most of our insects on the island. It's gonna affect the food chain that can cause a loss of the reptile also on island.
Unlike the plants, endemic Mauritian skanks and geckos had to be left behind on Île aux Secrets.
It's really hard to catch geckos and skinks on the island. That's why they remain on the island mainly. So when the wakashu ran aground, we were a bit scared that the toxic fumes could have negative impact on our reptiles here on Île aux Secrets. We will find out in the future whether actually reproduction or the survival was impacted.
While all the nursery plants were removed and none of the skinks or geckos left, some of the birds stayed on the island, but others were evacuated.
The most endangered bird in Mauritius is the olive white-eyes. The good thing on Île aux Secrets is it's a predator-free island. So why we bring the bird here is to allow them to be less predated and to survive more. So when the wakashu oil spill began, we were scared that the hydrocarbon fumes intoxicate the bird, and it was decided to take some of the bird from here to translocate them to the Black River aviaries. So of course they are a bit stressed, but then because they are wild birds, we decided to build bigger cages for them to be better, and once these bigger cages were built, then they did much better.
We have a duty to nature to preserve all the plants and animals. We do not have the right to let species decline, less so to let species go extinct. And to be able to keep this inheritance that we've received for future generations, we need places like this, where not only can we save those plants and animals, but these are places that the public, especially Mauritians and the world at large, can come and look at these species, can understand these species, and can be enthused by the beauties of these species.
For the wakashu disaster, size does not matter as much as where the oil was spilled. Even after preliminary cleanup efforts, it continues to threaten the long-term viability of the island's unique ecosystem by potentially disintegrating the coral foundation and causing adverse impacts along the food chain.
Life on the island does go on. And as for the olive white-eyes, the reptiles, and the ebony trees, well, they're far luckier than the now extinct Mauritian dodo. They have the dedicated staff of the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation fighting for their survival. But the question does remain, when can they come home? Liu Feifei, CGTN, Île aux Secrets, Mauritius.
In Zimbabwe, residents of Epworth, an impoverished high-density suburb of Harare, are grappling with water shortages. They have now turned to a nearby dam to try and cater to their immediate water needs. Here is CGTN's Chao Mgono with that story.
This dam has become a lifeline for the community in Epworth, a settlement in southeastern Harare. Here is where they fetch water for their everyday needs.
This dam has become our primary source of water. We get water for laundry, bathing, and even cooking.
Others have found ways to run commercial enterprises near the water. Sean Mupangari is a local resident who has set up a brick molding business with his colleagues here. It's a venture that is paying off.
Brick molding has provided food for my family. I had to quit my formal employment to come and do brick molding here because of the returns I was getting. Now, I am able to look after my family, including some of my relatives who I stay with.
But residents still face challenges with adequate water supply.
Our appeal is that more boreholes be drilled so that there is enough water for everyone. This will help even in fighting unhygienic practices that may cause the spread of COVID.
Along with the threat of the coronavirus pandemic, water levels have dropped. The situation has drawn the attention of well-wishers to this area. Clean water supplies are being delivered to the residents of Epworth. A welcome relief for now.
We are now in the dry season and the water table has gone low. Most boreholes in the area are drying up, so this water delivery is providing huge relief to residents here.
Hope remains that the deliveries will continue until authorities find a lasting solution to the ongoing challenge. Chao Mogono, CGTN.
Africa Live continues. We've got your business news coming up next. Here's a peek at the headlines. Ethiopia launches a 200 birr note as it introduces new currency. Declining food prices keep inflation low in Egypt as the country battles the coronavirus pandemic.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for tuning in. Ethiopia has introduced new currency notes. The government hopes the new notes will curb the financing of illegal activities as well as reduce corruption. It has also introduced a 200 birr note. CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi reports from Addis Ababa.
The 10, 50 and 100 Ethiopian birr notes now have a new face. A new denomination of 200 Ethiopian birr has also been introduced. Most of the print work has reportedly been done in the country by the National Bank of Ethiopia. The government hopes replacing the old currency will cease production of counterfeit money. In June alone, security officials reported cases of fake currency distribution in 2 regions of the country. The government has also raised concern that some people are holding money in speculation instead of releasing it into the economy. Hence, it hopes the new currency regime will support financial institutions to confront currency shortage. The Office of the Prime Minister says the currency change process will be guided by a command post that will be formed that includes National Defense, National Intelligence Service and the Federal Police. The change of currency comes as Ethiopia is battling a shortage of foreign currency as well as increasing inflation, which the Ethiopian Central Statistical Agency says is a double digit. Coletta Wanjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Annual inflation in Egypt has eased to its lowest level since October 2019. It has been supported by a decline in food prices. The statistics agency says the inflation rate in August slowed to 3.4% compared to 4.2% the previous month. CGTN's Yasser Hakim looks at how Egypt is taming inflation.
The slowdown in the rate of annual inflation is one of the central bank's biggest accomplishments since Egypt embarked on a sweeping economic program in 2016. The turning point was the devaluation of the Egyptian pound along with a loan from the IMF. This has restored investor confidence in Egypt. Investments and funds started pouring in. Foreign reserves soared to $45 billion from a low of $16 billion in 2014. This has allowed the government to embark on mega projects to produce goods in Egypt and cut on imports. Agriculture and food production have been the main priorities.
The central bank also intervened to tackle inflation rates. It supported the Egyptian pound against the hard currency. Once the dollar value weakened in the market, prices dropped, especially for food prices, bringing inflation down. The second intervention by the CBE is that it decreased interest rates, and that had to lower interest rates, which means lower inflation.
And even the normal citizens can feel the difference when shopping for food, such as this resident from Cairo's Giza region.
The tomatoes were being sold for £5, but now they're only £3. Cucumber was 10, now it's £7. The prices have dropped. Carrots are being sold for £8, but now it's £5. That's because of the abundant supplies of vegetables in the market.
Before Egypt carried out sweeping reforms to its economy, inflation had accelerated to 35% in 2016-2017, severely affecting business activities. The successful implementation of these economic reforms have seen inflation continue to tighten, dropping to the current rate of 3.4%. This is despite the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic that has led to economic crises across the world. But how can the government keep this success rate in check?
What helped the country during the coronavirus is that there were considerable stocks of strategic goods and food products. Once the international lockdown happened and factories closed down, Egypt's food reserves were used and no one felt a shortage of products in the market. Now that life is gradually returning, we need other measures to preserve this success. We need an influx of hard currency to keep inflation down. For example, tourism is a major source of hard currency and this sector should be revived. The recovery of other sectors will also help the economy.
It's been a tough 4 years of austerity measures that have put a lot of burden on the citizens. However, the government has managed to shield the Egyptian economy and the people from the effects of a major international recession caused by the pandemic due to these measures. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
South Africa's economy is this year likely to contract by more than 7%, previously forecast by the Treasury. Finance Minister Tito Mboweni, however, says that the government will move with greater speed in the Operation Vulindlela, which means open the way to accelerate structural reform. In an opinion article published on Sunday, Mboweni points to the easing of regulatory hurdles and allowing more private investment into the public sector, especially in electricity. He is scanty on the overall details of the plan. The country recorded a 51% decline of economic productivity in the second quarter of this year, marking the fourth straight quarterly contraction. The Reserve Bank had in July cut its 2020 forecast for GDP to a 7.3% contraction, with the Treasury projecting a 7% decline. Some analysts expect a double-digit contraction. Farmers in Nigeria continue to suffer enormous losses due to the pandemic-related restrictions in the country. The worst hit are fish farmers, who say demand for their products has dropped due to health regulations limiting operations of hotels, bars, and other entertainment joints. CGTN's Deji Badmus has more on that story.
It's time for harvest at Haifa Fish Farm at Ikene in Nigeria's southwest Ogun State. And farm owner Olatunji Fafoye is coordinating activities. His fish farm is one of the biggest in the area and supplies many people and businesses in the southwest region of the country. All his harvests are usually brought to his selling outlet here, where many buyers would be waiting for him. But since the outbreak of COVID-19 in Nigeria and the subsequent restrictions imposed by the government, buyers are few. And Ifafoye says this has seen his business incur huge losses.
We could not access feed raw materials easily, and we could not offtake our farm produce easily, thereby we were unable to meet up the financial requirements of the company. So far, after our internal auditing, we realized a loss of about 60 million because of the effect of COVID-19.
That's a huge loss for a small enterprise like Haifa. The Association of Fish Farmers in the country says the picture is even worse when the plight of every fish farmer in the country is taken into account.
We are talking about those fishes that were due to go to market between the lockdown of March 22 and today. We are talking about the seeds, fish seeds, the fingerlings, the juveniles. They were supposed to have gone into other ponds to replace the grown-up fishes that have been that are supposed to have been consumed. We are talking about the value of processed fishes that could not get to market between then and now. So that a rough estimate of about 150 billion can be put as losses.
For over 5 months now, social gatherings, sports, hotels, bars and restaurants have been heavily regulated by anti-epidemic measures.
We are waiting for people to get back to their social life. Marriages, the type of marriages we do in West Africa has been suspended for almost 5 months. The type of burials we do, the type of chieftaincy titles we do, in some communities, especially in the southwest of Nigeria, the weekend starts from Thursday, Friday till Sunday evening. And these are social events where our products are mainly what they rely on to keep themselves busy on the social scene.
Despite his losses, Ifafoye is lucky to still be in business. Quite a number of small fish farmers in the country have been forced to shut down or suspend operations. But Ifafoye says the pandemic has taught him very valuable lessons.
COVID-19 has led us to improve in our alternative mode of production, because when we were unable to get some certain raw materials in producing our fish feed, for example, we are forced to get alternative materials within our locality. So we are forced to use what is available within us.
For now, many fish farmers like Ifafoye are concentrating on their local markets. And as the government slowly eases more restrictions, they are gradually increasing their production. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
And we are not done just yet. We will see you on the other side of the break with more news. Here's a look at what's ahead. A South African film about friendship between a man and an octopus captivates many.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. A friendship between a human and an octopus is usually the stuff of Disney movies. However, that's not always the case. My Octopus Teacher is a South Africa's first nonfiction original Netflix documentary shot and produced in the Great African Sea Forest in Simonstown. The friendship between a filmmaker and a mollusk defies all logic, but it is captivating audiences around the world and has been nominated for several awards. CGTN's Julie Shire has that story.
Burnt out filmmaker Craig Foster turned to the icy cold stormy waters of the Atlantic Ocean to find solace. In a refreshing twist, he forms an unlikely friendship with a mollusk, the subject of nature documentary My Octopus Teacher.
I had this crazy idea. What happens if I just went every day? It's taken almost 10 years to put this together, although the key story comes out of an intense year I was privileged to have with this amazing octopus in the Great African Sea Forest here on the tip of Africa. The story is definitely about my great teacher, this octopus, but it's also about the ocean and how important the ocean is to our lives. It's really our lifeline. We breathe because of the ocean.
This is the first time that this incredible environment that's literally on our doorstep is being shown to the world. And the Great African Sea Forest is a very, very special place, not just because it's filled with incredible beauty and incredible animals, all of which have their own story and drama, but because this is the only place on Earth that human beings have lived for more than 100,000 years.
The bond grows stronger with each passing day and consumes Foster's thoughts for almost an entire year, continually drawing the filmmaker to the untouched kelp forest.
There was just something about this octopus that was very, very special. You know, she was very curious. She lived in the same place for a long time, and the more he went, the more she recognized him.
He learns valuable lessons but also watches helplessly as she fights off predators and the threat of global warming.
The most profound thing that comes through that for me is if an octopus, which is a snail, can show so much love and sacrifice for her future generations, whether it's instinctual or not, what can human beings do to make sure that we are leaving a world that is livable for our children and our children's children and their children after us?
By the time I finished watching, I had chills down my spine.
This nature documentary is not your typical one. It's someone's deeply personal journey into a magical, almost mythical world that fills us with hope and love for our planet.
It also led to the start of the Sea Change project to help protect South Africa's marine environment. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
What an amazing story there. And now to our continuing digital safari series in the Masai Mara. We explore the African plains with the young and the old, cautiously navigating through the land.
Yesterday on CGTN's Digital Safari. An exuberant energy was felt in both the young and the old across the African plains. In the Masai Mara, an adorable jackal pup had an adventurous start by exploring the plains. Inquisitive about its surroundings, not a trace of fear could be seen in its movements. On the marshlands, high-spirited baboons played near the water, some trying out their jumping skills. A baby baboon thought better of it and opted to hitch a ride on his mom's back. At Djuma, a baby elephant was energetic and mischievously played around those trying to snooze in the shade. In Gala, Marna was treated to a Dagger Boy mud party. Buffalo will take any chance to roll in the mud to protect their skin from the harsh sun. Filled with life, like all things in the wild, a weeping Boerbean in Pridelands was host to a diversity of tiny creatures who were set on dining on its bright red flowers. But the cheerfulness of the morning wasn't experienced by all. The two sibling cheetahs moped about the dusty road after having their kill scavenged by hyenas. The cheetah, being the most delicate of the big cats, would not dare risk their livelihood against even one ruthless hyena. And a new lion coalition was found in Djuma, walking nervously about the Avoca male territory. They were forced to traverse the unfamiliar territory and cautiously navigated through Djuma, as not to be discovered by the mighty Avocas. Join us every day at 4:30 GMT on CGTN digital platforms for your very own virtual safari through the African wild.
And we've got your sports news coming up after the break. Here's a peek at the headlines. In sports, Tunisian Paralympians returning to training after ease in restriction by government.